thing.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Shadow and Sun Show. That is not my son. That is Graham. That is my co-host.
If your son turned like this, you'd be in trouble.
Or I would have suddenly aged like, 50 years in a matter of moments. So today we are going to do another Gaming for Preppers, help you folks out for, whatever emergency might come down the road where bugging out is not an option. To be brutally honest, unless it's an earthquake or a fire or something real or a flood, I really don't recommend going anywhere. Everything you own and everything you need is right there in your home, with the exception of clean water and possibly food. Last week, I told you guys about a water filter. I found it. It is by the Sawyer Company. This thing, it cost me like $15, and it's probably more now, obviously. But it will filter 100,000 gallons of water. That's what, 20,000 5-gallon bottles. So if you take care of it, follow the instructions, and clean it itself, around the connections and things like that, it should last you a good long time. Maybe not a year. It really all depends on how many people you're taking care of, because I assume you guys are all the head of your household, or right off the bat you got to take care of yourself, probably being the strongest person in the group, because you're watching this video. I just saw a couple of ads lately for a device that literally pulls water out of the air. Has anybody seen one of those yet?
No, I haven't.
Okay. I looked it up, and the one I really looked into only gives you about 2 gallons a day, and it costs probably about $2,000. But you just I guess plug it in, which obviously is going to be an issue. You have to trade your electricity for water, at some point like that. But it will literally just pull moisture out of the air, filter it, and boom, you've got clean water. I've seen bigger ones that do up to 40 gallons a day or something like that. 40 gallons a day. That's, if you don't count, taking a shower, especially my son taking incredibly long showers. He is a teenager. That's a lot of water, especially if you could, hold off on using it all in one day, and you can store it. That's, or, making sure you've got, the water bottles for that. My family goes through, let's see, let me see if I can do the count. About 20 gallons of drinking water just to drink, not for, cooking or the dog or anything like that. We go through about 20 gallons a week for 3 people. So,
does it make much difference that you live in the high desert?
Yes.
Would that be different?
I don't know, because they were talking about using them in Iraq or, somewhere, in the Middle East where, it's pretty much desert. YJ, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on over from RT and Crafting Gamer. Glad to see you again. We're like the title says, we're going to talk about, staying where you are when a minor or somewhat major emergency happens, whether it's another pandemic or something like that. Hey, Kevin, what's happening, buddy? For the most part, I really don't recommend it, because you're either going to end up camping and having to come back home, or you're going to end up in one of the camps or at, one of the, arenas where, if you get stuck in a situation like that, God forbid, you're going to be under someone's, control, literally every minute of the day. The people that were stuck, I forget what arena that was during Katrina, where they were stuck in the arena in tents, and the gangs took over the food supply. And they're not going to let you bring your firearm in there. They're going to search you, take away whatever they want, and keep whatever they want. And the biggest thing for me is what's going to happen to your home while you're gone. Are you going to have a home? If it's a fire or something like that, by all means, get the heck out. But if it's some other enforced situation, they're not going to let you take what you want. You're going to probably have to get into a military truck or a train car with a backpack, and that's it.
Yeah, don't do
You know,
that.
yeah, I mean that's never turned out well for anybody, and it certainly
Nope.
doesn't turn out well for the cattle's.
Nope.
For the cows to get on the cattle cars, you
Yep.
know where they're headed. They're headed to, your local burger chain at some
That's a
point.
great point. Great point. And what about the
Yeah,
roads, Shadow? They're going to be, if you're lucky, all the roads on the major roads are going to be a mess. But even when you get to minor roads going out of certain areas, you might have a hard time. What if they roadblock the roads for a reason? And then you're trying to turn around, you're stuck there with your family. The roads are a mess, and you can't even get back home. And then you're stuck in between. And then, like you said, that's real bad.
absolutely. And I'm going to read a couple of chats here because they're pretty crucial. Water is so important. It should be top priority for everyone. It is life. I have a Sawyer mini in my bug out bag, a makeshift Berkey in my kitchen, a second one, a double duty 10-gallon do it yourself Berkey in storage. And later on, we'll do a video on making your own filters. I mean, all you need are, some sand, some charcoal, some grass or a sponge or something like that, and a big water container that's double ended so you can pour water in, then it can drip out the bottom after it's filtered. And Crafting Gamer says, I'd like to make a survival suggestion. Learn one or more old world skills. If you know stuff like that, you'll be one of the most valuable in your group during the post apocalypse. Absolutely.
Good idea.
Whether it's, farming or first aid or any of those things like that. Absolutely. This spring is the perfect time to get back in shape. And, instead of, just watching your favorite YouTubers, except us, of course. There's a whole lot of survival videos out there. A lot, I watched one last night on how to salt meat. It's pretty dang simple. I'm like, oh, no, all you need is a good container, salt, and a place to drip it dry and then hang it dry. And next thing you know, you're set to fry up some bacon or whatever you want to go with. YJ also says, I devised a way to retrofit a Berkey filter into a zero water filter housing. It's nice and small and fits in the fridge on the counter. This thing right here, if I get rid of the packing materials, etc., and maybe improvise a larger water capacity thing, and if you're going to use one of these, definitely keep really good track of the water you filter through it. And I would recommend that when you get to about 95,000 gallons, you just toss it and break out a new one. Kevin says, if you can weather it, stay. You know your surroundings. You hopefully have something. Never be at the mercy of the unknown. It can only help. Sewing is probably the best craft to know. Knots are probably the best skill to have. That and good old-fashioned foraging and hunting. You can always get somebody else to do the sewing, but if people are starving, they're not doing anything but laying around moaning about how hungry they are.
And if you're in an area where you've somehow gotten away from here, even if you're behind your house, and remember, vegetables are about, if you get an early vegetable, plan on at least 70 days for most vegetables that are early, 70, 75 days. You've got something more complicated, 90 days before you'll have any yield there that's going to feed anybody. Of course, you could have, baby fruits in your vegetables, whatever. But if you're going to let it mature, figure on 70 to 90 days for your vegetables. But That said, you can carry enough seeds there to feed quite a few people if you get a good area and you got people helping you. Now, if you have people that aren't going to help you, like Shadow says, help you, they're not
cut
going
them,
to eat.
cut them loose.
Cut them loose and wish them well. Give them, give them one bullet and a pistol. No, I'm kidding.
That's
Try to
brutal,
get
man.
them to work with you. Just try to get them to
And
work with you.
now something I wanted to mention before I forget. Um, if you start getting, messages that everybody has to leave, what do you do?
You, that's a good point.
You pretend to leave. You get your
Yep.
stuff, you find a place, you you move the car out of the garage, you get it out. You may even, want to make a big to-do about it and pack up the vehicle and all that stuff, and then find a place as close as possible to home. And I'll go into some places in a minute where you can go that people might not look for you, because you need to be able to get back home within a few short hours, during the cover of night. Hopefully everybody else will have left and you can come on back in, and you need to be able to get out of that same place quick, because at some point, if they force you to leave, they're going to do a sweep and see who's, if anybody's straggled and left behind. But after a couple of days after that, you can walk right back in, and there's just not going to be enough manpower to patrol every neighborhood in, everywhere USA. And you can come back in, and then once you're back in, you're going to have to do some things to be careful so that you don't draw attention to yourself.
Absolutely.
And we'll get into that after I read the next couple of chats here. Contrary to what Farmville teaches us, strawberries do not grow in 5 minutes exactly. And my bug in plan revolves around going to retrieve loved ones. So I have to bug out to begin with, my loved ones safe and sound to begin with, as they're out pushing a normal life while I'm their bug out location. Okay, fair enough. Just remember, you're going to have, the more people you have, the more supplies you're going to have. And that's when it starts to get tough. Although, if you're getting the right people and they're willing to do guard duty, because that's going to have to be a thing. You're going to literally have to have people in trees, on top of roofs, and, some sort of communication equipment that's more or less, covert, to let everybody know time to hide, time to do this, time to, scatter or whatever. It's almost time for mushroom foraging where I am. I'd love to get some beefsteak and morels this year, or morels this year. Yeah, if you're into
idea.
that, some people in my family can't eat them and or don't like them, and the ones I like are, iffy. So it's not going to be a huge thing. I mean, they're a good thing to have if you don't mind, like canned or jarred ones. That's another good thing to have in your stock. I'm doing the safe space so that my kids can pursue life without having to worry about it. So if stuff happens or doesn't happen, they have a solid head start in life. It happens, then they come here. Right. Another thing, for those of you who have the ability and have the property, creating a impromptu or permanent extra cellar or basement that nobody knows about, might be the way to go, so that you don't have to leave the property, but you can monitor, when the people come in to do the sweep, and make sure you're not there. Just make sure everything of value is, downstairs where they don't know about it. Don't try to do the cargo container. Those things don't work. What you can get, I've seen, and they're not going to be comfortable, but some of the high-tech plastic septic tanks and water tanks, if you bury one of those and then never fill it and have a way to get into it, you can hide for, a certain amount of time before it gets to be really gross and uncomfortable. But I mean, that's got to be, you hear the trucks coming, you get in there, and you lock the doors behind you, and hopefully you can pull that off. I apparently we have family here on the show. Michelle says it's worth thinking about. The recent chemical spill in Ohio showed that you might actually have to leave because of a danger like that. Exactly. Or like
Yep.
where I live, fires and things like that. And if a fire comes, I'm going to be on my roof with the hose, doing everything I can till the last possible second. It's worth having a
Absolutely.
stock, small or large, of calories. Absolutely.
Hi,
I have a
Michelle.
disposable. I have a disposable car just for family retrieval. If it doesn't make it back, that's okay. Pasta, beans, protein, rice, grains, all that stuff. We're gonna do a video just on the foods that you're gonna want to hang on to. Maybe next week or the week after. Welcome, Squirrel. Again, I wouldn't have thought of this if it wasn't for you, my friend. I mean, I do this stuff anyways, but I wouldn't have thought to share this information. And one of these shows we're gonna have to have you on so we can kind of get an idea of what it was like to be in the situation and what you did. Maybe
Praying
if
for you,
there's a
Squirrel. Praying for
maybe
you.
next week we'll have you on since it's still kind of going on and you can give us the lowdown. Hopefully you have a good fire break. Yeah, I live in the desert, but it's not. It's the houses that are going to catch on fire, nothing else. The Joshua trees and the little bit of grass and things like cactus and things like that. That's not going to be the issue. It's going to be everybody else's house. No problem, YJ. This is important for all of our friends and really everybody. Our families and the people we care about, even our neighbors that we rarely say hi to. If you're there and nobody else is there, you can kind of protect the neighborhood, so that when your friends get back, but you will be doing some things that are questionable. Let's assume for a moment that everybody's left, the troops have come and gone, and you're sitting there, sitting pretty. It's only been a couple of days since everybody's gone, and you're like, okay, cool. I'm, I've got my family, I've got water, I got supplies. One of the next things you're going to want to do is, mind you, this is an extreme thing, and I don't recommend you doing it until you really know that things
Just say
are,
it, Shadow. Just say it.
you're
I
going to
know what
want
it
to
is.
go. You're going to want to go to your neighbors' houses, each and every one, and check the fridge. And
Yep.
you're going to want to take every single thing in those refrigerators out
It's
and
going to
put them in
rot
your own
anyway.
refrigerator. Right, you'll be doing them a favor by emptying out their crispers and all those veggies and things, so they don't, when they get home, they don't throw up when the rotting fruits and
Yeah.
vegetables have destroyed their insides. Go back
And
later for the cans
you're not condoning looting. You're just condoning getting rid of something that's going to rot anyways.
and potentially cause a health hazard. And you're doing your friends a favor because trust me, when people bug out, they're not going to be taking that head of lettuce. Okay.
Yep.
But you are. You will. And whatever is you can't actually eat because it's already going bad, you throw that in your mulcher. If you don't have one, get one, because you'll need it as soon as possible to start growing your own fruits and vegetables. Then we can go into that later because if it's a long-term thing or a permanent thing, you're going to want to not just have fresh fruits and veggies, but you can set up your garden to actually disguise the fact that anybody's home. Because one thing you're not going to want to do is mow your lawn. You will not be doing that anymore. You're going to let it grow as high as it can get.
Absolutely. Can I make a recommendation about gardens? The federal government,
Absolutely.
believe it or not, Shadow, wanted you as a garden growing person to I know you've heard of this, Shadow. To garden growing person, you've grown your garden with hard work and sweat of your own brow. They want you to register that garden, and they say they're going to send you a certificate. Do not do that. Do not grow a garden and do not register it. That's not the federal government's business.
Nope.
They're not going to do good things with that information. Don't give, if you have that issue, just don't give anybody information that you don't want to have it. If you really think about it, there's a lot of people you don't want to have information, personal information, especially about a garden that could feed your family.
No, no problem, Squirrel. We'll work it out, and you guys are going to be okay. One way or the other. I'm not going to, give you any false hope or promises, but we all didn't meet like this for no good reason. You know what I mean? And YJ says one way to create a fire break in a forested area is to have weekend campfire parties and have hand saws laid out. It only takes three or four people, and an entire property has a nicely pruned low branches. Gotcha. And if it's only for a campfire, all the kids just volunteer to keep bringing the dead branches. And you know what? Every time I cut anything in my yard, one way or the other, it unless it's the grass that I just toss. But all the twigs and branches, and not just the stuff that looks like firewood, but all that other stuff, I've got a separate bin for kindling. It's it's a big tall, I don't know, regular trash can, and it's full of all. If it can burn and it's not grass, and it's not like roses or something like that or leaves, it's going in there. The other stuff like the leaves, that goes in a separate mulcher. And if you're smart, you can get an extra trash can and you just fill it full of holes with a drill, top, bottoms, and sides, and you just throw that garbage in there, your banana peels, your leaves, and all that stuff, because you got to mix browns and greens when you're doing it. And when it rains, you find those worms that are coming up, you toss them in there, and they'll turn it into basically fertilizer for your garden. And that's going to be a big issue that we'll be talking about when we do the next one. Fertilizer is getting incredibly expensive, if not impossible to find. Absolutely, Squirrel. You tell these guys nothing. None of it's their business. They work for us. Never, ever, ever forget. They work for us. We are not their subjects. They work for us.
Amen. We fought a war about not being subjects.
And unless everybody on the continent decides to change that and vote otherwise, which again I wouldn't trust that vote, but I'm still not I'm not signing up on that. What I'm a subject. No, I'm leaving. I'll find somewhere else to go, and it won't be here, I guess. But they work for us, and they need to be reminded of that fact. They serve us. We don't serve them.
And they need to be respectful. And don't forget, if you have a copy of your deed to your house and your vehicles, photocopy it, have it by the door with a photocopy of your identification. And anybody comes to the door, you show them that and say, this is my property. You can keep that proof that this is my property. I own this. And make sure you tell people that. Anybody that comes to your door in a hostile manner, this is my property. I'm not talking about they're coming with guns. I'm talking about they're coming with intent to take your property under certain, they claim some law or some emergency
eminent
order.
domain, other than eminent domain, which is a big deal, in which case, you're going to get paid for that. So you might as well, negotiate a good price, or at least be the last guy out, that way you get the biggest price. But just don't. And yeah, I don't know about goats. I'm working with, getting the chickens for the place here. Because otherwise goats would just be something I would have to feed. We don't normally eat goat. I've had it. It's good. It's fine. But, I don't really have a big enough backyard. It's barely going to be big enough for the chickens and my dog and some veggies. But to be honest, what I'm really mostly concerned with is growing stuff indoors. I need to get some grow lights and do that, because I've got 6 months of the year where it's not good growing season, and even during the summer last year, it was so hot with the drought that I could literally saturate any plant out there, then 10 minutes later it was all gone. It was just bone dry. So having some potted tomatoes and onions and things like that would go a long way for us. So that's one of the ways we're going to deal with that. It's the other things like meat and and milk and cheese and stuff like that. That we've got a pretty good supply of that, but I'm getting another freezer to just store the larger bulk items from Sam's, things like that, and that's going to go quick. I think the one I'm looking at is like 7 cubic feet interior. That's really not a lot of room for food. It's really not. It might seem like a lot compared to most people's normal habits, but if it was solid meat, that would still go. If I had to salt it and dry it and put it elsewhere because the electricity went down, it would go fast. And I'm pretty certain that we would probably actually have to kind of overeat to consume it all, and then we would be, kind of bummed. One of the other things I want to talk about is how much do you need? Okay, how much food and water do you need? You can survive on, what is it, a little bit less than a gallon a day of water. And, on average, I mean, you could literally make it with, 1 can of a canned food product a day. Okay. But you're not getting much else done. And you're going to need to, keep busy and fit and active. One, to save your sanity. And we'll go into that. That's the last part, the gaming part. But you're going to need to, well, I'll get one, but right now I don't. Um, you're going to need to figure out, for your family, your friends, the people that live there, uh, what you can get away with eating, because right off the bat, you should really start that diet. Is the first day you realize you're in that situation is like the first day of the diet, whether you think you need it or not. And you're going to have to, be very judicious on, who gets to eat what, and, who's the most important person, to survive. Obviously you want everybody to survive, but if it gets bad, you're going to have to make some hard choices to make sure, the right people make it out of that situation. Whoever those people are, that's up to you. What is this? A small sign by gates and doors that says, "Smile, you're currently streaming live to an off-site cloud and cellular device. This is private property." Yeah, that works. That works initially, but after, a couple of weeks, that's meaningless. And, you might think that your dogs and things like that are going to be really good, but the dogs are actually, a double-edged sword. One, they eat a lot of food because they won't stop being hungry. No matter how much you feed them, they'll just want more food. So you're gonna have to, separate them from the food. You're gonna have to find a way to keep them quiet when you need them quiet. Because my little guy, he will bark at a leaf passing by, and there's nothing I can do other than, to tie his mouth shut. With even a muzzle doesn't keep him quiet. And the bad guys, they hear a dog and they're going to be like, they'll take your dog too. Okay. If they've got any brains, they will take your dog after they've taken everything and, left you in a pile, on your property.
But dogs are a great way to have emergency warning systems that don't need electricity.
Right. But if you're at that point, you really are at the worst possible point, because anybody who comes by is the enemy. Just going to put it like that. And you have to deal with them however you decide to deal with them. Your former neighbors and acquaintances are not that anymore. When you get to a certain point, you'll know when that is. When the electricity's been off for a month and the water's been off for a month and all that. It's survival of the fittest at that time.
If you have good neighbors and good friends, though, and you can practice some emergency situations. Bye, squirrel. If you have good neighbors and good friends and you can practice emergency situations with them and coordinate with them, that's always a great asset, because If you have one fortress, it's easy to take. If you have two, it's a little harder. Three, four, it gets a lot more painful for people, and they might say a roving band of thugs. They might actually decide, well, there's too many houses here with people that are determined to defend them, so we'll go somewhere else. That's always a good way. And then
Yeah.
just make sure they're stocked up, you're stocked up, everybody's happy, and make sure you always have those medicines. And if you need, say you're eating a hard diet, this is something it's an embarrassing subject. A lot of survival people don't talk about it, but you're going to need laxative possibly. And think about that kind of laxative. They make Colace and things like that are pretty easy on your system, stool softeners, because you're going to be eating a different diet than you've been eating. And
That's a really good point.
You're going to want regularity, even though, it's not a fun subject, but everybody does it. You got to poop. So have that regularity. Make sure to have those things that are going to help you, and medicines. Whatever that medicine is, if you can get extras. Now, if it needs cold, that's a lot more of a problem, but try to do solar power, have a cold little refrigerator just for your medicine. Whatever you can do to keep those medicines going for a while, and you're going to need them. So
You mean like insulin? You don't mean like aspirin?
Insulin. No, like insulin, anything that's going to require a refrigeration. Just wanted to put
Welcome
that
to
in
the
there.
show, Owen. Welcome to the show. I know we're gonna have to have you on one of these days because I know you've been in some sticky situations, and you're already pumping out some great advice. We're gonna have to talk about the neighborhood watch as an episode coming up here soon. RPG Grandma's here. You know what? You don't know this yet, RPG Grandma, but we're gonna make you famous. Okay? I've already had a talk with most of the guys out there. We're gonna make you famous. Okay? So just get ready. Okay? Don't get a big head on us, but just get ready. A meat diet and fat causes diarrhea unless you add carbs and fiber. Trust me. Right.
Yep.
Right. And
You're
an
gonna want
all
something for
bean
that
diet
too.
and an all bean diet, or beans and rice can also give you away in other gross ways. Just ask my son. He doesn't handle beans as well as his Mexican heritage would lead you to believe. Kevin says there's
That's a
going to
good
be
point.
more people that aren't ready than are ready. If you have something, you better only let other people that have something know it, if at all. Exactly. Yeah, you're gonna have to, really,
You have to trust them.
yeah. If you don't, if you trust your gut instincts. If you don't think you can trust them, don't even let them into your circle. If you've known them a good long time and they live right next to you, you're probably gonna have to let them into your circle because when they start smelling the barbecue going, which is probably going to be the way you're going to have to cook a lot of food. Now, there's a lot of food you could eat cold, especially if it's in a can, because almost everything out of a can's already been cooked. So get used to eating cold ravioli or, whatever. But the other stuff, that's, oh my God, I better go update Google. Yes, RPG Grandma, you better. Wait, that's true. And getting ready. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Or maybe keto, fasting 18 hours, and the body goes from carb burning to fat burning mode. 3 days, and the body switches to self cannibalism, muscle tissue loss. So a solid meal at least every 3 days to stay ripped. Yeah, that's going to be hard for most folks out there. They're not going to be able to just go cold turkey and hardcore mode, and especially if they're already of a weaker mindset, you're going to have to you know you're going to have to figure that out on your own. I know what I would do.
That's a good idea. Have exercise equipment. That's not mentioned a lot, but if you're going to be in a extended period in a house or a facility or a bunker, if you have such a thing, it's good to have exercise equipment, a bike, all kinds of things, anything you can do to get some exercise.
Mhm. Just don't rely on anything that requires electricity.
Yeah.
Just the good old fashioned, climbing up trees and making tree houses, or tree stands, or getting up and down off your roof because it's your turn to do that. Little things like that will also help you start to burn calories. Digging, you know, small places to hide, or doing the gardening in the backyard and walking the neighborhood because you're going to need to, but also getting a bike. You guys know I'm a big fan of bikes. Having a good bike that doesn't need you know uh, electricity or any of that junk, that fancy stuff, and extra inner tubes and a hand pump, because you'll want a fast way to get around the neighborhood. Even if it's a scooter, I suppose that would work, or a skateboard or something. But trying to, do those things and carry a small amount of equipment, if you know what I mean, with you. Maybe get a basket or things like that, or a book rack, so that you can carry your radio, your binoculars, things like that, just to make sure your area is safe and sound. And when your friends leave, when your neighbors leave, um, and they're of the certain mindset. They're not coming back. They're doing what they're told. You just have that conversation with them. Say, hey, if I'm here for a while, I'll do what I can to keep your place safe. But can I have the keys? You know what I mean? Otherwise, you're gonna have to break a window. And I'm
Good
sure
point.
they'll appreciate. I'm sure they'll appreciate that if they come back and their kitchen may be cleaned and empty, and you may have had to drain their water heater, but the other kinds of damage that could happen from the refrigerator, the freezer, the water, especially if it goes into summer or winter to summer, and you have to turn off the water for them so that when everything comes back, um, their pipes don't freeze or situations like that. Um, Allman, actually, the toilets will work a little bit longer than you think if you fill the back tank with water, and you can still flush. You're just going to want to, have to wait a couple of times in between flushings, probably. But if you take some of that water, like I talked about last time, every time I empty an orange juice container, I fill it with just tap water. I clean the crap out of it, and that's not for drinking. I can run it through the filter, and I can boil it and stuff like that. But it is for being able to run the toilet, because when the power goes down, the toilet will still work, but you won't get any water from the pumps. But if you provide the water, it'll still work. And eventually, it may clog up down the line, but you can always go to somebody else's house and do the same thing. Because when you go into someone else's house, their toilet's going to be full. And that's at least one good pooping. You know what I mean? You can flush it and then it won't fill back up. And if you bring
Good
your own
point.
water and things like that,
Good
right?
point.
Oh, exactly. Uh, uh, Hold on. Without power, you have no water pressure. Right. That's why you've got to provide your own water, and it will flush. I've had to do that in an emergency situation. The goal is to set up for staying and bugging out so you are prepared. Well, my goal is to stay and just stay. If I have to bug out, then I'm probably, if I literally have to bug out, I'm literally probably going to light the place on fire when I leave. Um, Yeah, but too many people survived the hurricane and found out it sucked for the next 3 to 4 weeks. Yeah, I can only imagine. I have a lot of friends that helped and did things like that. And yeah, there are places today that haven't recovered from certain kinds of events. If stuff hits the fan, it's probably a good idea to have an outhouse put up sooner than later, right? Fill a tub with water if you have advance notice. Absolutely. We talked about that last week. Fill up your bathtub, your sink if you can, whatever, whatever. If you've got those plastic storage containers that you got your Christmas decorations in, dump those somewhere, because you're not going to be needing those for a while. Put them in a plastic bag or something, but dump those out, fill those up with water. If they don't have holes in them, some of them actually have holes in them, which I don't recommend getting, but if they don't, fill them, and you can use that as well. Water is going to be one of your biggest issues. Um, Displacement is what I am thinking too. Right. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Bishop. Can you elaborate a little for us? Everyone lives in a location that has more likely stuff happening scenarios. For me, a forest fire is the most likely, while someone in Florida would be a hurricane. I live on the San Andreas fault line, for Christ's sake. So, God forbid that ever happens. All this is coming down on me during this live stream. So yeah, know your area, stay fit, stay in shape, do all those things you can do to be ready, because there's just as good a chance that it's not going to happen or nothing bad's going to happen. But if it is, you're prepared. At least know how a basic latrine works if you could dig one right. I just spent last week at a FEMA facility. You're going to have to tell us a lot more about that there, Omen, because I did a lot of deep diving in that, and it's weird. They built a whole bunch of those places over the last couple of years, and they're still just standing there more or less empty for no reason. I can't for a second think they don't want to use them. Flooding for me and heavy smoke from mountain forest fires. Yeah.
And don't
Earthquake,
forget,
what we get.
Don't
I'm
forget,
not sure what that means. Nightmare.
I had friends living in Richmond, Virginia, other gamers, and you didn't hear about this on the news. They were under an assault. These folks were white, and they were being targeted. As a matter of fact, one of my friends who's a gamer, a little quick story, his wife is very anti-gun, very liberal. He's conservative. And when that started to happen, somebody threw a smoke bomb on another person's porch near them. It started their porch on fire. She told him to get every gun he had near a door and as much ammunition as he had. People can change their opinion about things very quickly when things start to fall apart. If you live in an area where you might have a lot of civil unrest, be very prepared for that, and be aware that you might want to get out of an area like that. You might want to have somewhere else to go, because they will have no law at all, no matter what they are. Antifa,
Yep.
ELM, whatever it is. Crazy people, looters, just crazy looters. Be aware, any urban situation, you're stacked on top of people and you're going to possibly need to leave there because you're in an apartment or something. You're not going to last there long. It's just a numbers.
Yeah, Dawn of the Dead zombie apocalypse thing without the undead, just crazies.
Yep.
Yeah, right, Omen. During a natural disaster, assume 120 hours without any help whatsoever. That's like about 6 days a week at least. Population losing minds is a real thing. Yeah, absolutely. And if you can, when it comes to firearms, start with the buckshot, start with the shotguns, for a lot of reasons, mostly ballistics, but we'll go into that at a later time. But that noise is going to be very loud, and not everybody is going to be of the mindset of the zombie willing to, just, gang rush you. It's going to take a leader to inspire that sort of mentality, and you take that guy out or hit somebody, in the leg or something, where they're not going to, die immediately. Everybody else is just going to scatter, and they may come back later. And that's when, you need to use other precautions and other protection. Yeah. People respect that sound, very much so. And if you've got fireworks and things like that you can get, any of the kind that go boom, having those, that could save you from having to, actually use it. If they think you used it, but you just dropped an M80 on the ground, they're going to look around and see you and see a little bit of smoke, and they're going to be like, oh, okay, ain't playing around. Owen, that's so weird. Owen, I was just thinking about that, man. I was just going to say fire extinguishers. I've got a couple of the ones that you pump up with air and just fill with water, the kind that you see mounted to buildings and stuff from time to time. I've got a couple of those. But there's also this new product out that's a spray foam in a can that anybody can use, just like, shaking up a can of hairspray and psh, out goes the fire. And the cool thing about those things is that foam will last and stick around for a while, and you can, scoop it up and reuse the foam because it will put it out. You can put it in, some other device, or just, throw it at the, whatever's on fire, or spread it out, not with your hands, but
Shadow Buddy, I got to go to PT, but you continue the show. You got some great ideas.
oh, I'm going to finish up the last 15 minutes, and that's just going to be with the actual aspect that applies to gamers. Take care, Grim. I'll talk to you tonight.
Yep.
And have a
Everybody
good day.
out there,
and
stay
remember to
safe.
see what you can do. Remember what you can do to see about extending that PT. If not, talk to them. If there's like a videos that maybe your wife and you can work together to continue it. Because if once you learn your routine, somebody else can help you with that. You know what I mean? Your wife, can do some of the things.
I don't have much more of it, sadly. It was helpful.
No,
you guys
I
have
mean,
a blessed day. Stay safe.
So you and your wife,
Bye-bye.
can learn how to do it yourself.
Right. Absolutely. You guys have a
Take care,
blessed
man.
day. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
Okay, YJ says, actually, let me start with Omen. The camping with your family, absolutely, and learning how to use the fire extinguisher, and learning how to use every other tool in that toolbox, from the water filters to the hunting knife to the axe, the firewood, all that stuff, all those skills. The little guys will pick that up real quick, and believe it or not, in the right circumstance, they'll learn it the first time around. I like the bug out bag concept, but I like the bug out vehicle concept more. The bag is great add on to the vehicle, but the vehicle is a force multiplier. Absolutely. But for me, I live near wilderness. Okay. I can build a shelter and things like that real quick, make a campsite that's in a location that people aren't going to, really bother with. And it's close enough to my home that, I can be back home literally in like 20 minutes on a bike. In a car would be faster, but cars are going to be a lot more attractive and more easy to spot. When someone sees someone walking or riding a bike, they're more inclined to think, oh, that's just some homeless guy. You know what I mean? Absolutely. If you can get your game group, start them, thinking about these techniques. Mind you, the ones that you can trust, because in your game group, you may have that one guy who's always there, shows up empty-handed, no soda, no chips, just there to, mooch. Don't include that guy. Okay. You may love that guy like a brother, but don't include him, because, he'll probably make his way over to your place anyways, but don't include him. Or if you do, tell him, don't show up empty-handed. You better be bringing some food, some supplies, or something if you're going to be, into my circle, because, do a head count and show the guy, hey, there's already 8 people, one more is just, no, can't do it. I've got some scenarios, mobile or stationary. Mobile is way more dangerous and expensive. Exactly. You don't want to have to use the fire extinguisher when you don't want to have to use a fire extinguisher when there is a fire. Oh, okay. Yeah. You don't want to have to learn to use it when there's a fire. Evacuated with a car took 6 hours to go 30 miles during a hurricane. Right. We did firearms and CPR first aid last weekend. Okay. Good for you, Grandma. I wish I could say the same about a lot of the people I know. Now, to end on a lighter note, because I want to wrap this up in 10 minutes, and I really appreciate all you guys coming here, hanging out, and pitching into the conversation, because even though the chat won't show up after the video sometimes. My responses and reading your questions, that's why I try to read out as many of the questions as I can so that it makes it more permanent, so that other people can come by and watch this later on. I guess location has a lot to do with it for me. The most likely reason to bug out is a forest fire, and doing that on foot would be insane. Yeah, not only would it be insane, it would probably end tragically, and they would never find you. So yeah, get the heck out. You fire. Same here. There's a fire. There's not much I can do, but start going through my favorite books and dragging those with me, and hanging on to the top of the car so I can put more in the car. Or maybe I'll make the boy hang out on the top of the car. I'm kidding, folks. So let's say everything's going smooth. You've got your location. You've bugged out. You're doing good. Hold on. What game do you have? What game are you going to play when you've got all that extra time? You're sitting around the house. People are bored and miserable. They can't, do this, and they're going through withdrawals. They can't turn on the TV, or they, can't, play a video game. I mean, it's funny how everything, like, for those kind of people, revolves around a screen or another. Even myself, I'm so guilty of it, and I'm trying to break those habits. But pick a time, maybe it's after dinner, maybe it's before dinner, maybe it's all day long, because you guys are bored out of your gourd, and you've got the group playing a a role-playing game. If you're at home, or you brought a couple of different games, switch it up. Say, okay, well, today we're going to play Traveler. Tomorrow, we'll play Dungeons and Dragons. The day after that, maybe another game, or maybe we'll go, you alternate. But, having a good game, I know a lot of people will be like, well, we could just bring a board game, well, playing Monopoly and games where you win and lose, don't build up a team spirit, and don't, bring the group together. You can start teaching your family and your friends that are in that little gaming group how to work as a team. You can put them in similar situations in their character's mindset to role play out, the emergency things. I mean, you could even play games like Twilight 2000 or Gamma World, where it is a survival game. No worries, Bishop. These videos are, going to be out there. You can run next to the car, and you can watch it later. We're trying to keep them only to an hour so that, people can, absorb it all, and it's not too much, and you won't forget anything. Yeah, he could run next to the car. We'll just, we'll do what we did in the old days. We'll just tie his bike, and he could just, ride behind the car. You're playing your game. See, that you've already got the right idea. RPG Grandma, Arduin. Yeah, exactly. Gaming, shock off the grime, or shack off the grind. Yeah, give the people something to look forward to, something enjoyable, not just guard duty, cooking, and work. Give them something, at the end of the night. In the old days, all the kids got was a bedtime story after a hard day's work, and dinner of whatever, that was. You have chess, cards, cribbage, D&D, Star Wars Legion, and now Gaslands. You see, you're already thinking, just remember that, you may want to turn the lights out when the sun goes down, in which case, you may have candles and things like that. And you could tell, good Call of Cthulhu game, or, good other RPGs, in the dark. I've told the story of, where my son and I played Call of Cthulhu in the dark just for the ambiance. But think of, what are you going to do when you really, you're running low on candles, and you're running low on batteries and things like that. You're probably just going to have to, play Amber the Dice's role-playing game, so you won't have to worry about rolling dice. Great point about the team-oriented games, building team spirit. That's the dominant point of this whole stream. Well said, Shadow. Thank you. I was hoping somebody would get to it because, especially, your family and friends that aren't gamers, that aren't military, that aren't, in some sort of life-saving or medical field. You can teach them a lot of lessons and at least spark that beginning mindset of working together as a team and, making sure everybody makes it out of this mess alive, one way or the other. Losing a hand or a foot, you can still go on to role play another day, when everything gets back to normal. Because, at some point it either has to get back to normal or, I don't know what to tell you at that point. We have to hope for, everything getting back together. Don't forget musical instruments. Yeah, harmonica is absolutely in one of my bug out bags. I've had this harmonic since I was 17, and it comes in handy. Old time ghost stories. Yeah, exactly, Omen. Same thing. It's a, and don't even think twice about letting the kids get involved. If the kid wants to dungeon master or the kid wants to tell a ghost story, absolutely let everybody have a chance at doing that. Good to see you, Multi. You came right at the tail end of the show. I hope you'll rewind and watch the whole show because there's some good points. You guys here in chat are giving us all kinds of food for thought. I'm actually off grid and have been since 2002. You are a man after my own heart. All solar, lantern, backup, candle, backup after that. Exactly. That Harbor Freight has some solar panels you can install yourself with batteries, and you might find out that you can get by with just the one solar panel or two, because you can't make the water pumps at the your water plant turn on for you, but you can actually keep your refrigerator going with just a solar panel, and that, trust me, that's your most important electronic component in your house when everything is said and done, other than, obviously the toilet, and if you can't do anything about that, you can make your own and make do like they did in the old days. Kids make up random games and you learn the rules as you play. Yeah, my boy was dungeon mastering without knowing he was dungeon mastering with his friends in the backyard, and I couldn't have been prouder. First aid training could be a good team spirit activity too. Just get the most qualified individual to run the best course they're able to. Right, right. And get 2 panels and 2 big batteries. Yep. And a good inverter to start. Right. Because you're going to find that after a certain point, the second or third refrigerator and freezer, they're empty, so you don't need to run them. And a lot of things you can take out and put back, to rotate. I mean, that could be somebody's job, is to rotate certain foods, to keep the ketchup cold so it doesn't start to, go bad, or little things like that. But that's pretty hardcore. But just remember, folks, if it gets bad, you can make it better. Your favorite game can get you through just about anything. Think of all those times, back when you were younger, and that's what you ran home from school to go do. You ran home to hang out with your friends and play those games, um, and all that bad stuff can easily melt away, at least for a couple of hours. So that's what this was all about today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you got some food for thought. Speaking of food for thought, put spice in your bag. Start with the salt, pepper, and if you don't use it, don't worry about it. But if it's something you use, absolutely. Cinnamon and pepper are tropical plants, so you cannot get them in the wild, right? And we don't use a lot of things like that, so it's not a big deal for us. But everybody else, I know, especially like cinnamon, like you said, a lot of people like that for their tea or things like that. And those things, if you take care of them, they will last a good long time. You won't be throwing any of it away. And you can always get it from your neighbors if worse comes to worse, right? Because who's taking their pepper and their salt with them, right? So until next week, folks, have a great week. Stay safe. We love you guys. We really appreciate each and every one of you for showing up today. This was fun. I don't know what next week's topic is going to be about. If you have any suggestions of things you guys would like to chat about, let me know. We will start bringing you guys into the show, but I wanted Grim and I to get this off and off to a good start. And we'll see you guys next week.